In other news this morning, what investigators call a major drug bust.
Again, this is the third largest seizure total DEA-wide of methamphetamine this year.
The Drug Enforcement Administration says they got a tip about a massive load of methamphetamine that
officials with the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency are looking into a strange green shade of methamphetamine found during a drug bust just last night in Westbrook.
This was a major, and I want to stress, major drug operation.
The FBI and DEA just ripped apart a cartel-run trucking empire hiding in plain sight. 273 arrests, 250 trucks seized, and 52 tons of meth pulled off America's highways. What looked like ordinary refrigerated vegetables was really a load of poison, engineered with hidden compartments to beat inspections and flood entire cities. A cartel empire pumped billions in narcotics through U.S. highways, exposing a huge weakness in the American supply chain.
The biggest cartel crackdown in over a decade is underway. They're looking for drugs, especially fentanyl.
The scale of the takedown was shocking, but the scene that triggered it was even darker. Flashing lights paint the desert highway red and blue. While a K-9 unit circles the refrigerated compartments, federal agents tear into metal flooring with crowbars and power tools. Crates of fresh tomatoes and lettuce scatter across the asphalt. Beneath the produce, vacuum-sealed bundles gleam under the Texas sun. The trucks that feed America were also delivering poison. This was not one rogue driver making a mistake. This was not a single truck gone. Bad. This was an entire fleet. And the cartel did not infiltrate this company. They owned it from day one.
the multi-agency task force traced the tip to a tractor trailer and discovered more than 2,000 pounds of methamphetamine packed in with celery produce, disguised in green bags to hide the contraband.
The numbers hit like a hammer. Over 600 people were arrested in a massive federal operation. Authorities claimed seizures of methamphetamine and fentanyl that broke records. Federal agents described it as the largest meth bust in recent history. The operation targeted one of Mexico's most dangerous and powerful cartels. But here is what makes this case different from every other drug bust you have ever heard about. The battlefield was not a dark alley or a border crossing. The battlefield was the American supply chain itself. The perfect smuggling machine was not a speedboat or a tunnel. It was a refrigerated semi-truck with a Department of Transportation safety sticker and a contract with Walmart.
Hidden behind the tie-down straps and blankets are 8 large boxes.
So we're seeing multiple boxes. As you can see here, we can see bricks, which is consistent with what we see with possible narcotics trafficking.
Before we get to the traffic stop that cracked this case wide open, you need to understand why trucking became the cartel's weapon of choice. Most fresh produce in America moves by truck. Thousands of refrigerated trailers cross state lines every single day carrying tomatoes, lettuce, avocados, and berries. This creates an ocean of legitimate cargo movement that acts as perfect camouflage. Refrigerated trailers give smugglers multiple advantages that other vehicles cannot match. The refrigeration units create noise and vibration that interfere with detection equipment. Metal floors designed to handle heavy loads complicate density scanning. Produce manifests trigger less suspicion because they represent normal commerce. When you blend into the bloodstream of the economy, you become invisible. The cartel understood this better than anyone.
Cartel bosses have been caught.
One of 29 extradited to the U.S. late last night.
Massive quantities of fentanyl have been seized.
México ha logrado el mayor decomiso en su historia de fentanilo.
And drug labs across the country have been smashed.
On a dusty stretch of highway outside San Antonio, Texas, a routine traffic stop was about to expose a conspiracy worth $2 billion. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. A Texas Highway Patrol unit signaled a refrigerated semi-truck to pull over for a standard commercial vehicle inspection. The truck belonged to Southwest Logistics, a company with a pristine reputation, full DOT certification, and contracts with the biggest retailers in America. The driver remained calm as he handed over his commercial license and cargo manifest. The paperwork listed 20 tons of fresh produce, tomatoes, and lettuce destined for a distribution center in the Midwest. The manifest was flawless. The truck was spotless. The driver looked like any other professional trucker on America's highways.
To 25 different locations to find drugs, just like this pile right here. All of this came from just one location.
But the K-9 unit did not care about paperwork or appearances. As the handler walked the German Shepherd around the trailer, the animal suddenly sat down near the rear axle. That passive alert meant one thing: narcotics. The troopers opened the rear doors expecting to find something obvious. They saw nothing but neatly stacked crates of vegetables. They moved the crates aside and checked the walls. Still nothing. They examined the ceiling panels and the refrigeration unit. Everything appeared normal. But dogs do not lie. The troopers brought in a portable density scanner and ran it across the floor of the trailer. The reading came back wrong. The floor was too thick. The metal showed density patterns that did not match a standard trailer floor.
Flooding our cities with a weapon of mass destruction, fentanyl. And when we catch you, like all of these individuals, if convicted, we will put you behind bars, there will be no negotiating, and we will lock you up for as long as humanly possible.
Using heavy pry bars and cutting tools, officers began removing the metal floorboards section by section. Beneath the refrigerated cargo space, concealed in a custom-engineered void, they found it. Plastic-wrapped bundles, vacuum-sealed to absolute perfection, filled the hidden compartment. This was not insulation or equipment. This was 100 kilograms of pure methamphetamine. The driver was immediately placed in handcuffs, but during the interrogation, something unexpected happened. He looked genuinely terrified. He swore he had no knowledge of the drugs. He insisted he was just a driver hauling lettuce from Texas to the Midwest. The DEA agents watching from behind the glass began to realize he was telling the truth. This was not a rogue driver smuggling a few kilos on the side to make extra money. This was a structural engineering marvel designed specifically to fool federal inspections and trained officers. The compartment showed signs of professional fabrication with hydraulic access points and climate control bypasses. And that single truck was just one of 250 in the fleet. The Drug Enforcement Administration had just stumbled upon the largest trucking drug smuggling operation in American history. The bus became part of a 6-month operation called Project Python, designed to pull tons of heroin, methamphetamine, and fentanyl off American streets before they reached major cities.
The pills are smuggled in by the thousands, stashed away in gas tanks, tires, even shipments of fresh fish, then passed off as less lethal drugs like Adderall. Now, for the first time, the Drug Enforcement Administration thinks it has found a way to fight back against fentanyl.
The cartels have turned smuggling into an arms race of innovation. Every time law enforcement develops new scanning technology, the cartels engineer new concealment methods. They test their compartments against X-ray machines, density readers, and K9 units the same way tech companies test products before launch. They study federal inspection procedures and build countermeasures. They hire engineers and fabricators who understand material science and structural design. The cartel does not just move drugs, they innovate like a Fortune 500 company. Every bust teaches them what works and what fails. Every seized truck becomes a data point for the next generation of hidden compartments. To understand how a cartel hides 50 tons of methamphetamine in plain sight, you have to look at the company they built. Southwest Logistics was not a shell company that existed only on paper. This was a real, functioning, profitable business that had been operating for 15 years. They employed over 500 drivers. They maintained a massive vehicle maintenance yard in Texas with mechanics, equipment, and administrative staff. They held legitimate contracts to deliver fresh produce to Walmart, Costco, and Kroger. Their trucks appeared at loading docks across America every single day. They paid taxes, filed DOT reports, and attended industry conferences. They were considered a pillar of the logistics industry with an impeccable safety record.
Every day, thousands of drivers bring goods to America, cars, food, even drugs.
But hidden inside this perfectly legitimate operation was a secret that would shock federal investigators. DEA intelligence operations led by Special Agent Maria Rodriguez spent 18 months carefully dismantling the illusion. What they discovered was both brilliant and terrifying. Southwest Logistics was not infiltrated by the cartel. The cartel owned the company from its very beginning. The business model represented a new evolution in drug trafficking. Roughly 150 of their trucks were purely legitimate, hauling fruit and vegetables 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These trucks generated real revenue, built the company's safety record, and created the appearance of a normal business. But the other 100 trucks were priority units. These specific vehicles disappeared into a cartel-owned garage for modifications that turned them into smuggling vessels. The modification process showed incredible sophistication. Mechanics installed hydraulic compartments beneath the trailer floorboards with access systems that required removing specific produce crates in a precise sequence. The compartments were accessible only to those who knew the pattern. Regular drivers loading and unloading cargo would never discover them. The operation, codenamed Highway Harvest by federal investigators, revealed that these priority trucks were moving between 50 and 200 kilograms of methamphetamine on every single trip. They traveled America's highways mixed in with legitimate traffic, delivering poison to distribution hubs in Chicago, Atlanta, and New York. After dropping their illegal cargo, they reloaded with legal produce to maintain their cover for the return trip to Texas.
We got bundles. I'm gonna take a look over here real quick too. There it is, we got more. Yeah, let's go.
The driver system showed the same level of calculation. Most drivers were innocent, hard-working truckers who had no idea they were driving on top of a felony. They picked up manifests, drove assigned routes, and delivered produce to warehouses. They were pawns in a game they did not even know they were playing. But a select group, the priority drivers, received coded text messages with route deviations and special instructions. They collected massive cash bonuses deposited into their accounts. Some were threatened into cooperation. Others were recruited from the beginning. These drivers knew exactly what they were hauling and looked the other way while cartel crews loaded the hidden compartments at secure facilities. Over 2 years of operation, this fleet moved an estimated 52 tons of methamphetamine and generated over $300 million in illicit profit. The entire time, they maintained a perfect safety rating with the Department of Transportation. Every inspection passed, every audit came back clean. Agent Rodriguez understood that taking down one truck would accomplish nothing. The cartel would write it off as a cost of doing business, replace the truck, and keep operating. To kill this beast, she needed to cut off the head. She had to take down the entire fleet, the corporate headquarters, the modification garage, and the executives all at the exact same time. But raiding a company with trucks scattered across 48 states presented a logistical nightmare.
We've shifted to target the entire network, from where the cartels are purchasing precursor chemicals in China to where they're mass producing fentanyl in powder and fake pill form.
DEA Administrator Ann Milgram says over the past year, her agency and law enforcement partners have seized nearly 44 million fentanyl pills.
If even one driver tipped off the headquarters, the evidence would be shredded in minutes. Hard drives would be wiped clean. Financial records would vanish. The cartel leadership would disappear back across the border into Mexico, where extradition becomes a political chess game. The date was set for October 20th. A total of 400 federal agents from the DEA, FBI, and State Highway Patrol were mobilized for the operation. They tracked every single priority unit truck via GPS in real time. They positioned SWAT teams outside the corporate headquarters in Texas. Surveillance units took positions at distribution warehouses in multiple states. At 4:00 a.m., the order was given. The largest simultaneous trucking raid in United States history was a go. If this level of infiltration blows your mind, hit like and subscribe, because what comes next in this investigation hits even harder.
We're here illegally. That won't shock you. And we're running a massive, massive drug operation. This kind of success doesn't happen without extraordinary leadership.
At 4 a.m. on October 20th, command centers in Washington, D.C. and El Paso went live, and across the country the trap snapped shut. This was a synchronized shutdown of an entire logistics empire. On Interstate 10, a priority unit was hit by 3 unmarked DEA SUVs. The driver, a 10-year veteran, pulled over thinking it was routine, unaware his name sat on a federal indictment. Agents in tactical gear cuffed him against his own truck, while a specialist team tore open the trailer floor and pulled out 50 kilograms of meth hidden beneath avocados. This scene unfolded simultaneously across 12 states. Drivers were dragged from sleeper berths, trucks were intercepted at weigh stations quietly secured hours earlier, and within the first hour, agents seized 50-plus trucks packed with contraband. But the real strike landed in Texas at the Southwest Logistics Corporate. headquarters where an FBI SWAT team breached the glass front at precisely 4 a.m. Executives in suits, men who believed their $50 million in clean revenue made them untouchable, were ripped from their offices and thrown to the floor. Agents swept through conference rooms and executive suites, seizing servers, financial records, employee files, and the encrypted shadow ledgers that documented the cartel's illegal profits. Those files became the smoking gun that crushed every defense the company tried to mount in court.
They're killing their customers. Now, why do they do it? Because if someone takes fentanyl and they survive, it is the most addictive drug that has ever been widespread. It is 50 times more addictive than heroin. So what they are trying to do is to get Americans hooked.
Simultaneously, a second tactical team hit the company's vehicle maintenance depot, the engineering center of the entire operation. Inside the garage, agents found mechanics in the middle of welding a false floor into a refrigerated trailer. These were not corner shop mechanics working for minimum wage. They were specialized fabricators paid cartel wages to turn American trucks into undetectable smuggling vessels. They were arrested with welding torches still in their hands, sparks still flying from their work. The tools and blueprints seized at the garage confirmed the DEA's worst fears. The concealment methods were industrial grade, involving hydraulic lifts, climate control bypasses, and materials specifically chosen to fool X-ray machines and density scanners. By sunrise, the scale of the takedown became clear. The arrest count climbed rapidly throughout the morning. A total of 273 individuals were now in federal custody. This included the CEO and top executives, the logistics coordinators who routed the drug shipments, the mechanics who built the traps, and the priority drivers who knowingly hauled the poison across state lines. But amidst the chaos of the raid, a different tragedy began to emerge. Federal agents had detained nearly 500 drivers in total as they processed everyone connected to the company. As investigators interviewed them and checked their records, they realized that nearly 150 of them were completely innocent.
We will not negotiate with those who are killing our family members, including brothers, sisters, daughters, sons, parents, friends. Everyone in this room, I guarantee you, knows someone who has been afflicted with drug addiction, and many who have known someone who has lost a loved one because of this trash on our streets.
These were men and women who had simply applied for a trucking job online. They drove their assigned routes. They delivered their produce to warehouses. They were pawns in a billion-dollar game they never knew existed. They stood on the side of highways watching their trucks being towed away by federal agents. They watched investigators tear apart the vehicles they had driven for years. They realized in real time that their employer was a criminal enterprise, and their careers were destroyed. The DEA eventually verified their innocence and returned their commercial driver's licenses. But their livelihoods were already shattered. The physical seizure numbers were absolutely staggering. As teams across the country methodically unloaded the trucks and raided the distribution warehouses, the pile of drugs grew to unprecedented levels. Federal agents seized 52 tons of methamphetamine. To put that number in perspective, that amount of product could supply the entire addicted population of a major city for over a decade. The street value exceeded $2 billion based on current market prices. In the warehouses, agents found the drugs vacuum sealed and hidden inside crates of bananas, buried under layers of lettuce, and concealed within false walls built into the trailers themselves. The cartel had turned the American food supply chain into a delivery service for death.
The DEA today announced a major step in the right direction following a year-long investigation against Mexican drug cartels that are flooding America's streets with fentanyl.
The major retailers were notified immediately. Corporate security teams at Walmart, Costco, and Kroger were absolutely horrified. Their distribution centers had been used as unwitting transfer points for cartel operations. The trusted trucks pulling into their loading docks had been carrying lethal cargo alongside the produce. Contracts with Southwest Logistics were terminated instantly. The company was blacklisted from the entire industry within hours. Before the sun set on October 20th, the company that had generated $300 million in illegal profit over 2 years was effectively erased from the map. For the 273 people sitting in handcuffs, the nightmare was just beginning. The charges filed in the Western District of Texas were not standard drug trafficking charges. Prosecutors unlocked the ultimate weapon of federal law enforcement, the RICO Act. By designating Southwest Logistics as a continuing criminal enterprise, prosecutors charged the entire corporate structure as a single criminal entity. This meant the CEO sitting in his glass-walled office was just as legally liable for the 52 tons of methamphetamine as the driver who physically hauled it across state lines.
In the U.S., fentanyl is killing more people than any other illicit drug.
Fentanyl overdoses are now leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 49.
The executive's defense team tried a familiar strategy, claiming Southwest Logistics was a legitimate company infiltrated by rogue employees. They showcased 15 years of tax returns, retail contracts, and DOT compliance files as proof. But prosecutors were ready. In court, the DEA unveiled the shadow ledgers pulled from the company's servers, proving the executives didn't just know about the drug shipments, they budgeted for them. The records showed the so-called $30 million in annual legal revenue existed only to mask and justify the cartel's $300 million drug pipeline. The sentencing phase hit with historic force. Federal judges delivered zero mercy, calling the operation a betrayal of the nation's supply chain. The executives had taken the system that feeds America and weaponized it for cartel profit. Every senior leader received life in federal prison without parole, with the judge stating their clean corporate image made their crimes even worse. Their empire is gone, and they will die behind bars.
But it's the cartels that control the fentanyl industry, and they're not giving up that easily.
They have people everywhere, eyes everywhere.
The priority drivers were hammered with decades-long sentences, 20 to 40 years for those who stayed silent, and 15 to 25 even for those who cooperated. The mechanics who engineered the hidden compartments received 15 to 30 years, their own craftsmanship becoming the evidence that caged them. At the same time, the financial destruction of Southwest Logistics was total. Every truck, trailer, tool, headquarters asset, and over $100 million in accounts were seized under federal forfeiture. The entire company wiped from existence. If one cartel empire hid in plain sight for years, what else is already rolling beside us on America's highways?